British pastime is being pissed off about something. So if it's not the weather, it's where you fucking live.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's not the weather or where you live, it's this is your football team, and if it's not them, it's the bloody Tories. So it's going on. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's Johnny, his name's Andy. I pulled into Nazareth, was feeling about half past dead. I just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned, shook my hand. No, was all he said. Good old Fanny. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to. Selected with Tongs by Andy. What have you got for us?
Well, we are going to be going down the revisitation path of a band that we have listened to before on this channel. I think we've done 3 tracks by them, and this will be the 4th. It is Death Cab for Cutie, and the track by Mr. Gibbard and Company is a song called Crooked Teeth.
Something that's not tolerated in the US of A's.
I was going to make
prevalent.
It's going to go down a similar path, but I figured I'd leave that to the professional and I would stay out of it.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yes. So
Good
yeah,
old Austin.
that's great. So yeah, please go off and give this track Crooked Teeth a listen and come back. Let me know your thoughts, buddy.
Will do.
It was 100 degrees as we sat beneath a willow tree whose tears didn't care. They just hung in the air and refused to fall. It's a fall. And I knew I'd made a horrible call. And now the state line felt like the Berlin Wall. And
Okay, interesting start. It sounds very indie pop, sort of noughties. It's very sort of jaunty sing along. We get the picture there under a weeping willow, and it's hot, 100 degrees. I'm sure that's Fahrenheit and not Celsius, because your skin would be boiling. And there's something about there's trouble at mill. Definitely, he says something about he made a horrible call, which unless he's lamenting his failing job as a tennis court line judge, it's probably something to do with a relationship. And something about Berlin Wall as well, which when referencing this relationships is never good. Never good.
was no doubt about which side I was on. Cause I built you a home in my heart with rotten wood meant to keep from the start. Cause you can't.
Interesting. I was about to develop into something. I'm just going to go back a bit. God knows how long. That was that a pre-chorus, I think. I don't know what the right words to describe it are, but I see that as it's like an arch, which leads into another melody, and basically usually sort of goes higher and a bit sort of eyebrow raised, and it's the sort of thing that the Beatles did a lot of, and the Kinks as well, and others. It's a very sort of 60s pop thing. I'm sure loads of others did it, but they're the two that spring to mind. It's quite a McCartney thing rather than a Lennon thing. It sounds nice. So something about he built a home in his heart with rotten wood, which doesn't sound great either.
Cause I built you a home in my heart with rotten wood
hold on a minute. Okay, so that was a chorus then, really bright and breezy. It's all very poppy and quite sort of radio friendly, isn't it? Yeah, even though the one there's nothing at all, it's quite nihilistic. But it's sing along. People listen to this on the radio and they thought, oh, what a lovely song this is, without really thinking about the lyrics. But there's a bit there which went instrumental. That sounded a lot. Very simple. Sorry.
I braved treacherous.
Sorry about this, labouring the point. Let's go back a bit further. Do you know, it sounds like the Kinks. It sounds like Picture Book. It's particularly the do 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 do, and then when the guitars come back in, yeah.
I braved treacherous streets and kids strung out on homemade speed, and we shared a bed in which I could not sleep at all. 'Cause at night the sun in retreat made the skyline look like crooked teeth in the mouth of a man who was devouring us both. You're so cute when you're slurring your speech, but they're closing the bar and they want us to leave. And
Sorry, stop again. So this second verse is more about the scenario and it doesn't sound great. Treacherous streets, kids off their tits on homemade speed, and he's not being able to sleep in the bed next to the other person. And then describing the line, I was wondering where Crooked Teeth was coming in, because it was describing the person of the object of his affections, but no, it's the place. And the Crooked Teeth is the skyline. But he says of the mouth of a man that is devouring us both. Again, doesn't sound like he has a very happy relationship with where he lives and the person that with. Maybe that's what affected it. I don't know. Just doesn't sound very positive, does it? And then we went into that pre-chorus bit again, and that sounded quite. It's very similar to the first one, but when I was listening to it again, that sounded quite XTC in a way as well, which references back to the 60s pop as well. So it's all, I don't know, and then we'll reference the chorus.
you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. I'm a war of head versus heart, and it's always this way. My head is weak, my heart always speaks before I know what I will say. And you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't. And you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. There were churches, parks and malls, but there was nothing there all along.
Wow, apparently they've been devoured by nuclear fallout. Lovely. I just had a bit of a revelation as I was like coming back into it. So we went to that bridgy bit, and when bands do that, to be honest with you, I kind of stopped listening because it's just and I got a little revelation. And they went into a nice little guitar-y bit which is quite interesting. It was a cameo rather than a solo, but it sounded great. It sounded good. And then back to the big chorus again with added harmonies now. At that point, I'm thinking, it's interesting. This I realised what else this reminded me of. We happened to reference these guys in a recent episode, so we were doing Echo and the Bunnymen and talking about Never Stop, etc. And saying that one of the songs was produced by Ian Brunei, which went on to do the Lightning Seeds. And this is kind of like a Lightning Seed song. It's very poppy, nice, referencing the 60s, very inoffensive, and pleasant. A little bit lightweight, but nonetheless, really nice to listen to. And that's kind of how I feel about this song as well. I think I preferred Grapevine Fires more. This felt like it was just a bit sort of too smooth and pop-like, really. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just prefer something with a bit more grit to it, perhaps. But when you're in the mood for it, you're in the mood for it, and there's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, let's. I wonder when this was. I have to find out all that out and more besides by going back and chopping it up with Andy.
All right, so you have returned from your dalliance with Death Cab for Cutie's Crooked Teeth. What did you make of it, John?
Yeah, so it starts off with this classic sort of indie pop guitar riff. Feels very sort of, I don't know when this was, but feels very sort of noughties, early noughties. And then the drums come in, and then we got like an opening stand, and then the bass comes in as well and rounds out the whole feel of it. The melody itself feels very sing-songy and quite jaunty. So the scenario is they're sitting under a weeping willow tree in 100 degrees. I'm guessing that he's referring to Fahrenheit, because if it was Celsius, your eyeballs would turn to steam and the skin melts off your face. And obviously, we're not in Dubai.
That's a pretty logical end to reach there, John. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Fahrenheit.
Yeah. No flies on me. So I gather there's trouble at Mill. As the singer references a terrible call that he's made. Now, he could be lamenting his failing career as a tennis line call judge. No wonder they replaced him with Hawkeye. However, my astute senses lead me towards the rarefied subject of relationship issues, perhaps. Something that's seldom covered, and it's about time someone talked about
right?
it in music.
God, real trailblazers.
My hunch is confirmed in the following lines. Because I built you a home in my heart with rotten wood that decayed from the start. It's a really interesting line, that. Because he's talking about obviously a home in his heart, so he's acting with rotten wood. Now, where is this rottenness come from? Not from the person that he's addressing, so it's from himself. So you're kind of admitting that either the premise he made or what he put into it just wasn't good enough. It's really sort of quite an interesting line.
No, you're right.
Because it actually reflects back on the person who's saying it rather than the other person.
Even if they didn't realize it at the time that they were building their affections on faulty ground or whatever the case may be, there is this oh shit epiphany moment, which is the kind of the worst kind. Because when you realize that you lied to yourself before you lied to them, you've now lied to two people and you're in quite a mess. All at your own fault. So
yeah, definitely. So like I said, trouble at Mill. This I realised later on, later on the song, this is a pre-chorus, and it's sung in a manner which is hard to describe. I don't have the right words musically, whatever. But I would say it's like it's sung in an arched method. And what I mean by that is this sort of melody goes not sharp, but it rises and it arches over and bridges into another melody. And this is really interesting because it's quite an old school method. Where you get these pre-chorus things like this, and you really only get it, I'm thinking 60s pop is where it really, Beatles big time. McCartney loves like a pre-chorus like that, where it becomes slightly, I say not sharp, but it just goes up a bit and goes a bit off the melody and then leads into the big chorus. And this does the same here. So definitely Beatles, Kinks did it as well. And I think a lot of Andy Partridge's songs in XTC do that big time. And they go even more arched, as it were, as in more sort of sharp or odd before going to a sort of bouncy chorus that's very McCartney-esque usually. So this does, so really interesting little couple of lines there with a lot lyrically and musically. It does lead indeed into the chorus, which is big and bright and breezy in tone, whilst the lyrics insist there is nothing at all to find there, which is quite nihilistic. Then we get this instrumental little portion, which links into the next verse. And it's really interesting. So you get this sort of, it comes down as a bass bit, and it's sort of rhythmic, and then it changes after a bar or two into this other sort of bass rhythm, and is joined by the guitar. And bugger me if it isn't almost exactly the same as Picture Book by the Kinks, which I love that song. And do 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 do. Yeah, really, and it's a little, I don't know, 3 second snippets, but it bang really hits. And I love that song so much. So that ticks spot there. The next verse, we get a pretty picture painted of this scenario that the narrator. So it's more setting the scene now. We've got the interpersonal drama, as it were, and then the overall scene. We have treacherous streets, kids on homemade speed. I'm sorry, but as soon as I hear all that, I immediately, wrongly, think of Justified. It's more Breaking Bad, isn't it? But do you know what I mean? I just straight away think these kids are missing loads of teeth as well, probably crooked teeth. He's sleepless and can't sleep on the bed with his partner. And then we get the title reference, because I'm wondering where Crooked Teeth comes in, apart from the kids probably on meth, really, rather than speed.
Yeah. If they have any teeth in the wake of using meth, they're crooked if they're there at all. Yeah.
So. They put them back in wrong. So yeah, it's referencing the skyline of the sun showing these crooked teeth. Really interesting phrase, in the mouth of a man devouring them. Home sweet home. So yeah, it sounds like he has a jaded at best relationship with where they are, whether it's his hometown or they've moved somewhere. But so he's not in a great place, both figuratively and literally. So there we go. We get the pre-chorus again, which really solidifies my belief that this is heavily influenced by British 60s pop. Really sounds like it. And we go into the chorus, again, big and bright and sing-alongy type stuff. And then we go out into a ponderous bridge section. Now, to be honest, and I've voiced my dislike of 99% of bridges before, this is one of those where we get these kind of almost revelations between slowly strummed chords. And I kind of stop listening when bands do this. Thankfully, we then get to a bit where it's a really brief guitar cameo. And it's got a lovely raspy sort of sound to it, and it's not long enough to be a proper guitar solo anyway, but just like a cameo. But to me, it sounded like somebody picking at a scab, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I really enjoyed it. It just had that sort of irritation part to it, or whatever, particularly with all the sort of 60s bouncing melodies. So it was a nice little counterpoint. We then circle back to the huge radio-friendly sing-along nihilistic chorus with loads of added harmonies as well, which makes it bigger. If there were flags at this point, they would be waved. And then we end. So it was during that sort of bridgy part and then back into the chorus that I had another sort of like insight. And this reminds me, this song does, of an act that we've recently spoken about in the Echo and the Bunnymen episode. I reference a chap called Ian Brody who helped produce a lot of Bunnymen stuff, and he has his own band called the Lightning Seas, which I sort of mentioned, and they produce poppy 60s referencing songs that are really catchy and friendly and inoffensive, and if you want to be a bit sort of a little bit lightweight, but it doesn't diminish how pleasant they are or how loved they are. It's just a different brand. And I think this song kind of for me goes along that line. It's jaunty and happy and poppy. I think I preferred Grapevine Fires. That's the one I remember strongly. The other one was more of a folksy one. And then the Christmassy one I'm not really taking as their brand. Yeah. So yeah, this is more poppy than indie. It's nice and pleasant. Don't get me wrong, nothing to dislike about it.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the what I heard before. I just put the other one more. It doesn't mean to say I don't like this one, but yeah, it's just a nice poppy song.
Yeah, fair. And it at face value, it is all of that stuff. But there's something about the lyrical content, one, just in general, but also just to be more like some of the way the words play off of each other, or the way he, like, the phrases that he penned, I just find so interesting and evocative. To the skyline looking like crooked teeth, or the state line feeling like the Berlin Wall, and the decay made from decayed wood. All of this stuff is really interesting to me from a lyrical standpoint, that really lets you know, as a listener, if you've keyed in on that, that this is so much more than what it is musically, which is just this like indie pop track that does, from another angle, from a like a bubblegum standpoint, is like, oh yes, this feels like warm and home, because it does sound like so much of that 60s, like the original pop rock that came out of like the 60s or whatever. Even though I guess you could argue that there was some 50s stuff that came before that, but certainly from an English standpoint, that sound. So you get that, which tickles a nostalgia bone, but then you get this added depth or dimension with the lyrical content and what it might be about, and how that, even from a broad standpoint, is kind of antithetical to the shimmery, sing-alongy aspects of the music. And it's somehow still works, in spite of, like, in some ways, those things being on paper diametrically opposed. You know, these heady, interesting lyrics with this bright kind of like, I want to hold your hand kind of, quality to it, but it's so much darker than subject matter like that. So which is why I really enjoyed it, because it's like, oh, it's like, it's kind of subversive in that way, which I think is really cool and interesting. This track features on the same album that I Will Follow You Into the Dark features on, which is their album Plans. So yeah, we've covered that album on here. We've covered the band on here a lot. So I don't have a lot to go over here, but I will get through some of it. But go ahead, John.
One we listened to, that was a live performance, wasn't it? And it was mostly him on his acoustic
Right, yeah,
guitar,
kind
and
of
then
this
there was
man
a
in the guitar situation.
yeah.
Yeah. But that one's just close to the heart. I just a lovely little love song. So if your heart isn't completely, you know, concreted over and becomes stone, then there is some lovely aspects to that song as well. This has just a little bit more. John's over there going, yeah, that's me. But yeah, Death Cab for Cutie was among the first indie acts to kind of break out here on the mainstream level, garnering consistent radio airplay and touring arenas in the aftermath of this album Plans. In the mid 2000s, the quartet became one of the biggest names in American alt rock. Plans became the band's first top 10 album, peaking at number 4 on the Billboard 200 and moving 90,000 copies in its first sales week. Death Cab was one of the first indie rock bands to score a top 5 album in the United States. Prior to this, the only one was Bright Eyes, I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning, who had a top 10 album. And the album was also scored a Grammy nomination for the Best Alternative Music Album. In all, the album spent 50 weeks on the chart, never selling less than 1,000 copies in a week in the first 3 years of its release. By 2008, it was certified platinum by the RIAA, and it has logged 1.2 million copies domestically sold as of 2015. So, over 10 years ago. So, prior to this, the band's entire output had grossed just 1.1 million combined, and here this album surpassed it at 1.2. So that's pretty impressive stuff. Clearly a leap forward for them in their progression as a band. This track, Crooked Teeth, was released as the second single from the album, just after Soul Meets Body and before the aforementioned John favorite, I Will Follow You Into the Dark. The single was released on Atlantic Records, featuring the song Crooked Teeth and 2 B-side tracks, Talking Like Turnstiles, and a cover of Julian Cope and his song World Shut Your Mouth, which was originally released 2 years earlier as a B-side on the internet-only single Title and Registration from the band's previous album, Transatlanticism. The single peaked at number 10 on the. Go ahead, John.
Just because it popped in my head as you were saying this, but just um, yesterday I happened through work to visit a garden centre, and it was full of pensioners wandering around buying tat. Um, but I forgot what the song before it was, but I then visited the toilets, came out again, and Julian Cope, "Will Shut Your Mouth" was playing on the tannoy. I thought, this is bizarre, because I was the youngest person in the whole place. And I'm thinking, I don't know why there's, septuagenarians would be listening to Julian Cope. Very strange episode. But anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Right on. Well, now it's made another appearance in your life. You should probably go off and sit down and listen to that album or something. It must be a sign. But yeah, the single peaked at number 10 on the US Billboard Hot Modern Rock charts, making it Death Cab for Cutie's 7th highest charting song in the United States to date. Jeff Tarek over at Treblezine penned an article titled "The 90-Minute Guide: The Best Death Cab for Cutie Songs," and of course, this track was featured therein. And of it, Tarek had this to say: "This is as perfect as an indie pop song gets. Its melody won't escape your head for days, nor will the vocal harmonies at the end. The lyrics have weight, but not enough to detract from the carefree sound. It's recorded so well that it ultimately sounds too perfect to be indie pop. And given that the band is signed to a major was signed to a major record label at this point, it wasn't technically." But the word seems to be pretty much whatever you want it to mean these days. So whatever. Yeah, and that's a fair point about indie. Like, it's once it became mainstream, it got a little less, as the name would suggest, indie. But yeah, let's jump into these lyrics. "It was 100 degrees as we sat beneath the willow tree, whose tears didn't care, they just hung in the air and refused to fall, to fall. And I knew I'd made a horrible call, and now the state line felt like the Berlin Wall, and there was no doubt about which side I was on. 'Cause I built you a home in my heart with rotten wood, and it decayed from the start. 'Cause you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. I braved treacherous streets and kids strung out on homemade speed, and we shared a bed in which I could not sleep at all. Woohoo, woohoo. 'Cause at night, the sun in retreat made the skyline look like crooked teeth in the mouth of a man who was devouring us both. You're so cute when you're slurring your speech, but they're closing the bar and they want us to leave. And you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. I'm a war of head versus heart, and it's always this way. My head is weak, my heart always speaks before I know what it will say. And you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. No, you can't find. And you can't find nothing at all if there was nothing there all along. There were churches, theme parks, and malls. There was nothing there all along." So the song was co-written by lead singer and guitarist Ben Gibbard and guitarist producer Chris Walla. In a 2011 episode of VH1 Storytellers, Gibbard spoke about the backstory behind the lyrical content of Crooked Teeth. He said, "One of my favorite writers in the whole world is a man named Raymond Carver. And he has this way of writing single stories about people living small lives, going through some their very own trials and tribulations in ways that I've always really admired. I wanted to kind of create a story that involved two characters that were trapped by geography in southern Florida, and that they were kind of keeping themselves captive, and that the city that surrounded them was seemingly closing in on them, and this was the outcome of that experiment. This is my attempt to be a junior Raymond Carver." So, there you have. I see you smiling and contemplating things, John. What's on your mind over there, pal?
It was just so strange because I was literally Raymond Carver popped into my head. Was it yesterday or the day before? Was it
Was
before
this
or
while
after?
you were shopping alongside the
Yeah, yeah.
septuagenarians?
No, I think it was the day before. I was just reading about because I was trying to remember one of his anthology. Cathedral was what it was, and I was talking to someone about it, and then the story with the arguing people with the wolf just comes up on them, which I think is I can't remember what it's called. That's probably my favorite. But yeah, really interesting. I was trying to remember how he died because I always thought it was booze, but it wasn't. It was cancer, wasn't it? But yeah, it's so weird how that just pops in. I can't say I got a lot of Carver out of this song, but it doesn't matter. It's what inspired him, isn't it? Rather than
Yeah, yeah,
anything. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, I think behind all that is also this, as you were pretty quick to point out or catch, this sort of like oh shit moment when you're in too deep in a relationship. And not only do you want to get out of where you are geographically, which I think is also conveyed in the song, you probably want to get out of the relationship that landed you where you are geographically as well. So there's this whole like, I want to get out of this and I want to get out of here kind of sentiment behind all of this. And it all is quite self-inflicted, which he, I think, owns, but it doesn't take the sting out anymore having this epiphany. If anything, it only enhances the burn of the sting. So I just always really enjoyed this from a. It's so succinct, but it tells a story really well. I've always really loved the lyrics in this track.
Just trying to think about. It's weird because you do get this in American culture about we got to get out of this place and move. Even though the animals had the song, we've got to get out of this place. But I mean, for a country that's got so much space, I mean, you think you could just fucking go anywhere. I think do people? I think in this country, I don't know. My instinct is that people don't tend to move around as much. Um, but perhaps they do. Perhaps I'm just not thought it through. But the idea of being stuck in a place in this country. I mean, one, they just fucking lump it. I wouldn't moan about it. They would though, because British pastime is being pissed off about something. So if it's not the weather, it's where you fucking live.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and if it's not the weather or where you live, it's this is your football team, and if it's not them, it's the bloody Tories. So it's going to be on.
That's
But
great.
yeah, I just think because we're much more packed in, so there's not. I don't know the feeling. You drive across America, it takes you 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You drive across England, it takes you 6 hours.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a full
It's a big
day
difference.
there. It's several here, but
You have the sandwiches and halfway through, and that's it. You're done.
yeah. Well, I mean, part of that seemingly limitless options with living in an area so large comes also with that is this fear of the
Mm,
unknown. Because if you live in one part of England, you've got a pretty good grasp of what that place 2 hours over there is like. But with
yeah,
here, it's like the and I'm not saying that this facet doesn't exist over there, but the financial implications of doing something like that, but also the fear of a completely different culture or mindset in a state way over there with different
yeah.
laws and people and things like that. So, but I get it. Point. I mean, obviously your point
But
is
this is our my point of view from
yeah,
here, looking over there.
yeah,
So, but I get it. Your states are really separate countries, pretty much in
yeah,
terms of size
exactly,
of them.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, moving across, it just seems really easy from this point of view from here.
Yeah,
But yeah, it'd be pretty daunting, I think. But
exactly.
some of the best tales of American sort of popular culture are moving from coast to coast.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually from east to west. I have to say, there's not many stories about people moving west to east.
Oh, you should hear all the lovely things I hear about from my fiance moving from LA to Baltimore.
I'm
It's just
sure. I'm just studying. It actually comes to mind for most of them to do that.
it's quite the fairy tale. I say facetiously. But yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot for giving this one a go and revisiting and retreading the path of Death Cab for Cutie. Probably be some more down the line, and I'll probably try to get off plan since I've given you a couple off of this album at this point. But there's more from Narrow Stairs, another other albums of theirs that is really worth checking out as well. So look forward to doing that. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track, Crooked Teeth by Death Cab for Cutie. If you have any suggestions by them or any maybe of other like Postal Service, some of Ben's other band stuff, or just anything in general, doesn't matter who it is, feel free to drop it down in the comments field. We'll add it to the list and we will get to it eventually. And if you haven't, please like, share, and or subscribe. Really do appreciate it. Just costs you a couple clicks, but it means the world to us. So thank you so much. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.